Marcus, who's the most impressive athlete that no one talks about in the NBA? Someone you assessed that your metrics were just popping, and maybe people don't think of this as the image of athleticism, but your assessment just was wow.
I mean, 2 years ago, I said that's Luka Doncic, right? 2 years ago, I'd say he was the guy. Nobody, that our athleticism metrics have him off the charts, and nobody thinks he's an athlete. I don't know. I think people think that he couldn't be as effective as he is if he wasn't an athlete now. So I don't know.
It's the breaks, right? It's the breaks. It's the deceleration that he can just put people on ice skates just by stopping in his tracks.
Yeah, you know this because we've put this out in the world before. But traditionally we looked at how fast athletes run and how high they jump, and there's so many second order performance metrics that are so much more interesting, so much more predictive of success than how high you jump. And Luka jumps lower than your average NBA guard. He doesn't jump very high. He doesn't run that fast, but he stops better than almost any athlete we've ever assessed. He was right next to James Harden at his peak, was the best breaker we've ever assessed in the NBA. We have his breaking algorithm that takes into account all these physical systems that he needs to stop fast and in control. And Harden had the highest metric, and Luka as an 18-year-old had the second highest metric as a breaker. He was the second best breaker we assessed. So we thought he was an incredible athlete. He just looks kind of doughy and slow while he's being an amazing athlete.
Have you had Jokic in there?
We have. Yeah. We have.
Is there a physical attribute that he has that people sleep on?
Yes. Jokic is a great example. That would have been a better example. Thank you. Jokic.
I'll fix that in post, Marcus. Don't worry.
Listen, Jokic has the lowest vertical jump of any NBA player we've ever assessed. He's number one.
That's incredible.
Out of, I don't know how many, 980 or something.
Jared Dudley must not have come through.
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so.
Get him in.
Yeah, so he has the lowest vertical jump, but his movement quality is really, really high. We have this. We one of the things we do. I don't know if you've ever seen this, Tom, but we collect all these thousands of data points on how these guys move, how they land, how they change directions, how they slide, and we take all that data and we put it in a computer. And the computer clusters athletes based on all these movement properties, not just a single one, not like how high you jump, but all of these movement properties, the changes of direction, lateral speed, et cetera, second jumps. And Jokic moves towards what we think of as our kinematic movers. He's one of the few big guys that is on the edge of being. Our kinematic movers are our favorite cluster of our NBA players. They're players like CJ McCollum, like Trae Young. They're guys that aren't big jumpers. They're not super accelerator. They're not giant force athletes, but they are the Swiss Army knives of NBA movement. They can do everything pretty well to their left, to their right. They have no big mechanical risk. And Jokic is that guy in a big form. He has the right answer for every job from a movement standpoint. It's just he has such a low power motor to do it. Jumping he might not jump as high as you do right now as I don't know how old you are, 38 or something like that, a podcast writer. So that's what he's working with in terms of power, but he has really amazing movements. Jokic was the first NBA player that we had in that when he showed up and we're trying to set up, our GM was trying to set up court time for him. He said, no basketball. Basketball good, not so good. He points at his belly. He kind of makes this not so good. And then, he's got like this little pop belly and he's like, he just knows. He's like, I can play, but this needs work, right? And so he spent a couple months not touching a basketball. His off season was just working on his body. And you wouldn't say that, he's the most, you wouldn't think of him as a guy who just focuses on his body, but He knew enough to just do that, and he was confident enough in what he could do with the basketball that he could not pick it up for a couple months.